Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thriving Thursday. It's great to have you, Dr. Mwansa. I'm from the field of mental health. I work in psychiatry. I'm so happy to be with you guys today. And with me is Omega. Omega, explain what it is that you do.
Of course, I'm Omega Chiwala, and I'm a student at the University of Lusaka, studying Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery under the School of Medicine and Health Sciences.
Great. As I said, we're glad to be here and share in celebrating International Women's Day, whose theme is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 world. Wow, so that's a lot. So, you know, things that stand out, leadership and being equal and living in COVID. I mean, a lot of us have experienced living with COVID, the adjustments we've had to make, but we also, you know, as women know what kind of challenges, and in the last few days, our previous speakers have highlighted some of the challenges that there's been experiencing in COVID. So, yeah, Omega, as a young woman, as a medical student, would you care to share your experience of how it has been?
Learning in times of COVID-19, this pandemic has really, I have really adjusted a lot in line with my academic experience, my academic thriving and the like. So, because of COVID-19, we had to start our blended learning. First, we had to go online. We started learning online, and it wasn't easy because less contact with the lecturers, understanding. It's very different from the physical classes where we have to, even as groups in class, you can ask questions, the lecturer can explain, but we were limited to internet. We were limited to online, and it was a lot in line with trying to keep safe, trying to maintain social distance, and just trying to learn while keeping safe and trying not to get sick. It was really a struggle, but yeah, with determination and focus, and also knowing why you are in med school, it really helped a lot.
Okay. So, as a young woman, I know you have questions for me. What would you like to know?
Okay, so you've been a medical student before. Let's start with that, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you've been a medical student. You've been in my shoes before. So, how did you manage to thrive through? So, it's Thriving Thursday.
Yes.
Well, ask me, so how did you manage to excel? How did you manage to still keep up with med school? Because it's a lot. It's quite a lot, and I'm still new. I'm in the process of learning a lot of things. So, I'd like to get that from you. How did you manage to?
Okay, so for me, wow, medical school was tough, as you may experience. I did my pre-med in the US, so I came to join our Zambian medical school at Ridgeway campus in our third year, which is, I guess, what you're doing. And some of the challenges I had, I was scared. I was adjusting to a new environment. Of course, I did live in Zambia before, but I left when I was a teenager, when I was about 14, and I only came back after my first degree to come and now join medical school. So I was adjusting to a new environment. I didn't speak the local language in Lusaka, which was Nyanja, but I did speak Bemba, and thankfully we're an English-speaking country. But I also have, I had adjustments in obviously where I was coming from. The facilities were different. But I managed because I loved my classmates. They were so welcoming. My lecturers were also welcoming. I had to adjust obviously to the culture where I was coming from. Yeah. It was a bit of a different environment, but generally the lecturers were great. The workload was a lot. Sometimes it almost felt like you wouldn't have a life outside school, but eventually you learn to manage. Obviously, in the first few weeks and the first semester, you're all trying to get used to having lots of work and trying to understand the anatomy, the physiology, and everything that goes with it. And also, I was in a class of 68 students, That was the number of our graduating class. But you know, with med school, as you go along, some people don't make it. So there's always that stress and anxiety of, I need to pass, I need to pass, I need to pass. But sometimes you have to tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to make it, I will be okay. I may not get an A plus or a B plus sometimes, but I know what my strengths are, and with the help of my lecturers, I will pull through. I want to be, and focus on why you wanted to do medicine, why you want to be a good doctor, the material when you don't understand. We used to have study groups, but yes, a lot of support, and we were, in our graduating class, we were 15 girls out of the 16. So for me, being in the minority in terms of numbers has always been there through pre-med and through medical school. I wouldn't say I've had several challenges because of it. I think even as the 15 girls, there was quite a lot of support, and from support from my seniors as well. Of course, sometimes you face some challenges where you think, oh, people just don't care, or I'm so stressed, or maybe mom and dad don't understand. So, you know, when you call them, I'm trying to study, they'll be like, what can I say? No, I can't hang out. But eventually, when you get the balance, you try to somewhat live a well-rounded life. Yeah. So talking about thriving as a young woman, I think if you remain, you know, focused and reach out, you're talking about in COVID learning online. Gosh, I wouldn't know what that would be like, but it has to be a challenge because the internet is buffering, there's load shedding. In my own home, I've seen it with my daughter as she tries to study and her brothers are knocking on the door. We want you to read to us. Come and play. And she's like, look, I'm in class. And she said, oh, one of the lecturers, I don't know whether it's the neighbor's baby that was crying. But you know, you get through some of those teething problems. And even when you have an online meeting or trying to do certain things, it's not always as easy. So it has been challenging, but also very rewarding. Yeah, so definitely there are ways to thrive even amidst hard times. Yeah, and talking about leadership, well done, you're a class rep.
Thank you.
Yay, repping. Yes, so being a class rep, I was actually a vice class rep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you know, when you have exams, there's a lot of pressure. It was nice working with my colleague, with the then class rep, but there are a lot of challenges because there's expectation. Everybody expects you to do certain things, and you go and talk to the lecturer. Yeah. So what has your experience been as a class rep? I mean, I know you just started the term.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I have been a class rep for quite some time now, for 2 years. So. It hasn't been easy, really. It hasn't been easy because, of course, like you said, the expectations. People expect a lot from you, even things that people can do on their own. They expect you to do those things. So, as a leader, let's talk leadership. You really need to be there. Yeah. You really need to be there. Emotions, you feel like giving up. But again, in line with giving up, I always think of giving up. Then I realize, why am I giving up? Why? Is it because I'm using my emotions? Is it because I'm hurt? But then I realized as a leader, one quality of a leadership is to try to differentiate between, to put a distinction between the emotions and their work. So I wouldn't want to mix my emotions because I'm hurt, maybe I should give up and no. So I try as much as I can to stay in line with what I'm supposed to do. I try as much as I can to deal with my emotions while I'm also doing the work as a class rep. Of course, you deal with different lecturers, different feedback, and of course, you might feel like giving up. I can't do this anymore. Well, I can, but of course, I have a very nice vice class rep who's he's very helpful. He advises me a lot, and sometimes when I say I want to quit, he'd be like, "We are a team. If you quit, I quit." Then I'm like, "Wow, so why are we going to quit?" So. Yeah. I feel like I just really need to stay there until my class finds a reason to give the position to another person. I don't have reasons to quit. I will not use my emotions to quit as a class rep. I'll continue being a leader until time comes for me to pass it on.
Well done. Way to go, Omega. One of the things you mentioned are emotions, and you know, a lot of the times, especially with COVID, you know, especially with us women, you know, women are looked at as caregivers, so we're meant to be the understanding person. And sometimes sometimes what you've mentioned is very important, checking in on our emotions. How are we doing? And so, one of the ways of, coping and trying to thrive and maintain is to be aware of what I'm feeling. And, sometimes we need to connect. And when we need to take a break, we take time out. As you're saying, dealing with emotions, it's not always that you're always going to be on a high or feel good. More often than most times now in COVID, we're experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Working with students, that's in my personal experience. I'm not giving statistics from a paper, but my personal experience working with a lot of medical students that come through, anxiety is one of the common things that they struggle with, and trying to challenge your thoughts and trying to challenge those negative, I'm a failure. If I'm thinking I failed a test, so I'm a failure. No, you failed a test, trying to convince them, but you have a chance to make up that grade.
Exactly.
You have a chance. It doesn't label you as a failure. Let's try again. You have the opportunity to try again with other things, and even for times where you completely fail the year, like me. I failed the year. It was just terrible. I cried. I just thought the world was over. But I went to talk to my lecturers, and they, when I had one-on-ones in the subjects that I didn't do well. When I came back with different eyes. I had to stay away for 6 months, but I came back, and it was a very rewarding experience. During that time, I was able to work on myself and work on those things and be at least more in touch with my lecturers and more in touch with my strongholds and those people, even off campus. My friends off campus who would then encourage me and sort of normalize. Sometimes they'll say, your nose in a book all the time. Take time out to breathe and take time out to reward yourself. We need to be kinder to ourselves. And as women, in a home setup, sometimes we're the ones who have to teach the change in gender roles. So like with even with children around or siblings or parents, if you're the leader even in the home, they expect Omega will cook or Kangwa will do this.
Exactly.
Try and give somebody else that role so that you can have that time to relax. And it's also very good to be aware of your resources. One of the things that a lot of students ask me is, really, are there mental health services out there? And when you have a conversation, people wonder, we're so blessed. Imagine if we were living in COVID without social media, without WhatsApp, without any virtual platforms have helped a lot of people in COVID where you can't have that one-on-one conversation, especially in mental health. So if you have, platforms where you can reach out, even if you're that shy person, try and reach out to somebody you're comfortable with. I know the school has resources, like counseling, somebody you can just talk to, and somebody who's not, where you don't feel judged. Sometimes we judge ourselves too harshly, and one of the other things that I've learned is to be thankful. Thankful that you're alive, thankful that you're able to do what it is that you want to do. And it's not always going to work out.
No,
there are a lot of hurdles, especially in COVID, but we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be thankful, and in times where we struggle to express ourselves, we find channels and ways and means of taking those baby steps to say, okay, maybe if I talk to Omega, or maybe if I talk to this person, this other person, they may be able to encourage me. And sometimes just reading information, there's loads of information on the internet. Sometimes it may be a bit too much, but there are resources that you can go to online. I know WHO has a lot of resources that you can look at if you're coping with stress and you're coping with anxiety. Anxiety is basically a lot of worry. In COVID, you limit the amount of information that you churn to COVID. In the morning, you wake up, you're listening to the news, then you're watching the updates, and then you're watching who's sneezing. You're not concentrating.
No, you're not.
So you have to be limited. And one of my colleagues, she always talks about living life deliberately. Be deliberate in what you do. When you make up your mind, it doesn't happen magically.
Yeah.
If I want to be a young woman and I want to be a leader in whatever field, I have to be deliberate to make those small steps, like being a class rep or like being in charge of something even small. Those who are active in church or even within the home, you take up something. Those are small things that will build you as a leader. Even if it means this group discussion, I'll take charge. It starts slowly building your confidence. Or you agree that, okay, we have this activity, let's all take turns. I had a friend who was had terrible anxiety, and when you get to your clinical years, you have to do those presentations. You can't sort of shy away. You have to present that patient, and they want to hear you. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, I've never spoken a word. Am I going to know what the 10 causes of malaria are? And you worry, but slowly, eventually, you know, I mean, some people may even ridicule you and say, no, do you know anything? But, my friend used to hold my hand by the lab coat, say, you know what, it's okay. She knows herself, because I was so nervous about, I had this terrible experience with one of my lecturers when I started out my clinical years, and she used to hold my hand through the presentation, like, you can do it, don't worry about it. Yeah. So as young women, we do face a lot. We are the caregivers. We are expected to take care, but we must take care of ourselves. I don't know if you have a lot of networking as students amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
In your experience, what has been some of the things that you've been doing?
As students, we try as much as we can to be, let's say, to be connected to each other. We try as much as we can to help each other. Of course, there are students who think that's totally a waste of time. And there are students who feel like you can't do it alone. And I'm one of those people who feel like I can't do it alone. I need involvement in whatever I'm doing. I need involvement. I need to involve my friends. I need to get insight from those people. It really helps a lot because, of course, my dean of students, Professor Kasondeboa, always says it. You can't do it in med school. You can't go all the way up alone on your own, because med school requires you to socialize, interact, for you to get to know another thing. You might not know something, but your friend knows that thing, and because they explained it to you, you're able to know it. And like you say, over the years, you gain the confidence to continue doing it again and getting involved. So I think that really helps a lot.
Yes, connections, especially with other women. I'm not saying we should close ourselves off. Yes, the world is a melting pot from different backgrounds. They're men and they're women. And I've found great help in connecting with women from different backgrounds, different careers. I've learned so much from women outside the medical field as well as women. I mean, we have a Medical Women Association of Zambia who also take in and mentor students. So I've learned to interact with different levels of doctors. And some, you just meet by chance. You're like, oh, you're a doctor. And you start talking and you find that, you may be in your 20s and this person is in their 70s, but you connect so much and they're able to impart so much knowledge. And so these connections that we have with people also help us cope with stress, with anxiety. A lot of the times, especially dealing with grief and COVID, there are a lot of people that are sad and are worried, and sometimes all those things take a toll on the body. And before you know it, you find that you begin to have these ailments. When you have stress and anxiety, it starts to come through in the way that you feel. Amidst COVID, there's a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, a lot of stigma, those that have suffered with COVID, students as well, lots of anxiety, as I've mentioned. Insomnia is quite common. It's common in COVID, but it's also common among students. You want to be studying day in and day out, you don't have adequate sleep. So rest is very important as a medical student. Rest is extremely important. I know there are times when you have to be what we call gunning because you have exams. But even in those times, I found that if I at least get 5 hours of sleep, I used to wonder, and that's one of the things I learned when I didn't do well and I had to come back, was take time and make sure you have a routine, something normal. When you're at home a lot, or you know, for those that are working, or for even students that are online, take time to take those walks to de-stress. Take time to have a routine that you can follow and notice when you're beginning to fall. So you have to really be in touch and know that, okay, I think I'm getting a bit stressed. Let me try and manage my time a little bit better. But trying to stick to a helpful routine and trying to stay away from overthinking things and overjudging things and sort of living in fear. These are all normal responses to what is happening around us. Yes. Yeah, so a lot of people go through that. The stress, the anxiety, the trauma. Unfortunately, there are a lot of women who now, because you know you're in isolation, don't have access, so trying to get access to help, but yes, the help is there. And even with online, you can engage routinely. If you're an online person and you have a great resource, you can do, if it's weekly or daily, you can do that.
Yeah.
Now, I know you had a question for me.
Yeah,
my
now, let's say anxiety. You talked about anxiety. You as a working mom, you're a mom, you are working, work and family. How do you manage anxiety? How do you keep up? How do you find time for family and work? How do you put a distinction between the two?
Okay, so what has helped is sometimes my working hours are set. I'm not always working at night, though. I think in mental health, the need has increased, especially in this time. So sometimes my phone is constantly ringing, even though, let's say I go into work, I start clinic at 8, you know, I finish work at 4 o'clock. In between, I have to do a school run. But 4 o'clock doesn't mean my work has ended, because the phone calls will still come, because there are definitely people who need to consult, who need help, and whatnot. So sometimes I do set a time. I do have my own personal line, but I also have a line where, you know, whether it's clients or work or whoever I can call. Juggling children and family is a challenge. So, you know, mornings sometimes can be crazy. But yeah, I think I've developed a routine where I do set aside time in the day where I just don't do any work at all. And I channel that in, and with having young children, they're always going to say, mommy, mommy, so you really don't have time to be thinking about your anxiety when I would like to eat now. I have homework, and they're at that age where they're very forceful about it. Excuse me, mommy, I'm talking to you. I have homework. And after homework, do you know what happened at school today? So that kind of takes my mind off of thinking about what has been going on at work. And you know, personally, I have lost friends during the pandemic and patients. So I try not to take that home with me. Hard to do, but I try not to take that home with me and set that time, you know, every day. When I catch myself feeling very low, I have a best friend who I can call anytime, any time of the day. My family members as well. Most of my immediate family is not here, so that's a stress in itself. But thank God for WhatsApp. So we're able to communicate. Yes, so we're able to communicate, and we're able to talk about other things. And I think, you know, especially with so my sisters are always, they know, they seem to just know what to say, you know, like, you know what, you're only human, you can't save everybody, you know, exactly. Say it like that. You can't, you know, not all of the world's problems are yours, you know, they deliberately have to say it wasn't your fault, you couldn't have done anything, you know, and even when you're feeling down, I have to be honest with the way that I feel when I talk to these people that I do reach out to. And, you know, being in psychiatry, thankfully, I have good bosses, and they do understand when you need to take time out, and they do check in. So I work in an environment where well, quite a number of women actually, but so that's a plus. But even with the men that we work with, I think it's a nice work environment, and if I said, look, I'm coping well today, they can understand. Because for us, mental health is a priority. So yeah, so I'm lucky that I have that help, and you know, my hope is everybody can get that type of help, because there are resources out there, and I'll be able to share, as we go along, obviously, where you can get help. One of the things that we must talk about is bad coping mechanisms, especially with students. One of the things that we almost always experience are students who lean onto substances. Alcohol, drugs, unfortunately, are a huge concern, because quite a number of people, students or not, do lean, onto coping with emotions. When you bottle things in, they don't pass. They do sit somewhere, and they start to come out in your day to day. Now, one of the common things that I've spoken, I mentioned that addiction is an area of interest to me. Since I think I was like 15, when I was 15, there was somebody who came to speak to us at school, and his life was just ruined. I remember he's a poet called Phil Cooper, and he just spoke about how his life was ruined with drugs. He was addicted to drugs for 10 years from age 14. And I was just amazed. I'm just thinking, what happened? So even after he spoke to us, I went up to him on the side. I just wanted to know why people are geared into that thought pattern, and where can we get some help? And how easy it is for somebody to offer you drugs, or even how easy we are with alcohol. Oh, no, you're having a problem. Just have a beer, But it's not, it's very common. We're a society that does take a lot of alcohol. But one of the myths is alcohol helps you with sleep. It's a poor maintainer of sleep. You drink, you fall asleep, 4 hours later you're up. Sometimes even 1 hour. Some people will tell me, yeah, I drink to sleep, but then I don't sleep very well. And so when you're using substances to cope, you're not coping at all. And even the initial numbing effect, because of what we call tolerance, doesn't work, because the more you take, you need more to achieve the effect, because now your body is getting used to. If I used to take, say for example, a bottle of beer, now my body is used to that one bottle, it won't have the same effect, and then I need two. And then now I have to change the type of alcohol that I'm drinking. I need more, something with a higher percentage. And now I've moved to a stage where if I don't drink, I'm shaking, I'm sweating. In severe cases, I'm having hallucinations, or constantly, some people go on for years and they can't sleep. That is so stressful. And so your initial coping mechanism has just now become a nightmare. And so, with almost all the students that I speak to that are so convinced that, drugs and alcohol are a way to go because they take the edge off, we have to provide alternative means. What if you spoke to me? And I can give you an alternative pathway. If you are taking drugs and alcohol and you feel you can't cope, your university has a counseling center. They can reach out to people who can help with trying to reduce the harm, and eventually, hopefully, you can quit. But the best way is not to start that pattern at all, and get informed. A lot of people that use drugs and alcohol don't actually read about what really happens. They know what they feel, but they don't know what actually happens. So when you're asking, do you know what withdrawals are? Do you know if there's a rehab or not? And how much it costs? And by the time you begin to realize the impact, some would have withdrawn from school, or they're sitting in class dozing, can't cope, and because I'm shying away, if I admit this, I'll be expelled. But something we practice in mental health is confidentiality. So if you go to the counselor and say, you know what, I have a problem, I need help, could you refer me to somebody who can talk to me about substance misuse? I'm sure they're happy to help, and they'll refer you to, any facility, obviously, that they know that can help. When I started in mental health, it was 10 years ago. The resources are not as they are now. Thankfully, we have a lot more resources. Of course, our work is more now. But it's nice to see that we're getting there. So for me, I'd say yes, the help is out there, but going this myth of alcohol and drugs among students doesn't work. Reach out, tell somebody, tell a friend, go to the counseling center, get the help that you need. The thing is, with all of this, you don't have to suffer alone. And for you to thrive, whether you're, a young woman or an older woman, connections. We are not physically together, but there are platforms where we can help and involve and get you to the place that you want to be. Yeah. So, I think I love Thriving Thursday. It's not all doom and gloom in COVID. It's not all doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's keep thriving. Let's celebrate International Women's Day. Thank you so much, Omega.
Thank you.
For being with me. And thank you for having me. We hope to hear from you again.
Thank you. It's been a great experience chatting with Dr. Mwansa.
All right.